Hello, everyone, and welcome to another installment of TEDXcellence, the show that is a show because it's a show that's a show. And I'm coming to you live from my Corona bunker on the moon with Dogcat Fox, a fresh pepperjack, and all of you. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Sunday, Supercilious Sunday. Yes, the day in which we all rest, except for the wicked, for they have no rest. I don't know what I'm saying. I'm just making it up as I go along. And who's along with me for this ride? Why, Keeverdam, hello. Asian Hippie, hello. This is Kyle, hello. Old Guy Gamer, hello. Jaeger Pony, hello. That one servant of Satania, hello. Thank you, the gayest person on YouTube. One, please. One you shall have. Tall person, hello. Who's next? Dark Alile, hello. Quinn the Cultist, hello. The Luke Skywalker 2, hello. And then the chat jumped because, of course it did. Functional, hello. Mike R, hello. Moonshock, hello. Cynic, hello. Black Belt for Christ, hello. Chap and Cap, hello. Keenan, hello. Mike Savage, Blarg. Brutus, hello. Tall person, thank you so much. Happy National Pecan Pie Day, everybody. Pecan. My mother likes pecan pie or pecan pie. I'll say it both ways. I'll annoy all sides of the equation. Functional, hello. Roger Reynolds, hello. Emperor W.R. Costin, hello. Sassy Shelley, hello. Jedi Ghost Bear, hello. Faithless, hello. Red Chaos Tree, hello. Anal Lynn, hello. Justin Anderson, hello. Spiral Girl, hello. Hate Camel, hello. Irate Prostate, hello. Sabian 187, hello. Hearst Gravegear, hello. Mott or Cycle, hello. Attack Alpaca, hello. Alice Morgan, hello. Did I miss anybody? I don't think so. I think I got everybody. At least everybody currently here. Okay. Well then. Corey Suzuki, hello. Sargin, hello. Chad Morrison, hello. Okay. Well, before I completely run out of breath, oh, this is Kyle. Thank you so much. Hello, chat people and scribbles. Hello again, Kyle. So what do we have today? Well, what we have today is the result of a poll that I put out on Twitter earlier. I had three sort of abstract topics of conversation that some of the TEDx's I have lined up cover. And I wasn't quite sure which one to do, so I put it to a vote. And it was a tie. It was a tie between the concept of time and allyship. And so I did a virtual coin flip on a website called, I think it's called like flipacoin.com or something. And it came up allyship. So here we are, allyship. And what kind of allyship are we looking for today? Well, I'll tell you. And Deck Tran, hello. How to be an ally for social justice. How to be an ally for social justice. Now, I want to know how I can be the best ally I can be for people who obviously need my help because of what they are. Now, am I being presumptuous about what the tenor or tone of the conversation or presentation will be? Yes, I am. I'm cynical, and I've done this a lot now. But you never know. You never know. And that's why I do these things, because I don't want to assume for sure that I know everything. I want to at least entertain some thoughts, even if I don't have to accept them. So this is a relatively recent presentation, all things considered, from September of 2019. And it's Dr. Melissa Michelson, Professor of Political Science, Political Science, if only there were such a thing, Political Science at Menlo College. So we have a true professional / expert here in stuff. And those are the kind of speakers I like to listen to, people who are accredited as people I'm supposed to listen to about things. So I have to take it seriously when we begin. We'll see how serious I take it when we're done. Remember, guys, to have your bingo cards ready. I have a feeling we'll be hitting some marks on this one. Link to the bingo card is in the description, so follow along. Any arguments for or against selections made on the bingo card as we proceed, I will entertain after the presentation is over, so hold on to those comments as we go. And a few more hellos before we begin. Chad Morrison, hello. Fernanda, hello. Brian Wilson, hello. All right, guys. So per usual, play the first couple of seconds. You let me know if you can hear it, and then we shall proceed.
People often fear those they perceive as different.
Yes, people often fear those they perceive as different. Well, the unknown is the most horrifying thing in human experience. Oh, but I'll tell you what's not unknown. The sweet, sweet ambrosia of a pepper jack. You guys hear all that? Sounds good, says Mike R. I can hear it, says Asian Hippie. Sounds good, says Kiefer Dam. Sounds good, says Attack Alpaca. And good, says Chad Morrison. All right. So, yes, people we perceive as different. We might be concerned, but let's see what our speaker has to say. It's awfully poorly lit TEDx stage this time around, but these are arranged by quote unquote the local communities, so maybe they didn't have a lighting professional.
That can be somebody of a different race, somebody who practices a different religion, somebody who speaks a different language, or somebody of a different sexual orientation. Or
simply someone you're not familiar with. And besides which, how would you look at, I suppose you could look at someone and at least suspect their religion, depending on what iconography they're wearing or what kind of dress they're wearing. Maybe you could suspect their sexual orientation if they're doing something or wearing something that projects that. But some of these things are relatively intangibles. So just seeing someone coming your way, it doesn't matter if they're another race or another sexual orientation, or other religion. If they are a stranger, that could be enough. But okay, so we're all very, I guess, insular, right? If I see someone that I quote unquote assume is exactly like me, I don't feel afraid. So if I see a white male who I can presume is heterosexual, and I can presume is a non-believer, then I'm not going to be afraid of this person for any reason at all, ever. It's the reverse of the implication here that I find interesting.
For example, back in 1967.
1967? Is this going to be a personal anecdote?
CBS News released a documentary called The Homosexuals.
In 1967, you say? I'm shocked.
An hour-long broadcast anchored by Mike Wallace. The program portrayed gay men as mentally ill sexual predators.
Golly, and we still think that way today, don't we?
As uninterested in and incapable of lasting relationships, and as a threat to children. The stereotypes perpetuated by that show persisted for decades.
And now they don't so much anymore, do they? Right? Or did I miss something in the last 25 years or so?
Americans believed that same-sex relationships posed a threat to themselves and to society.
Mm-hmm.
As recently as 1996.
As recently as 1996. Now, admittedly, I was alive in 1996. I remember 1996, and it doesn't feel like all that long ago. But it is quite a bit ago at this point. Given the speed with which we have shifted as a society, both legally and culturally, it's a while back. Just a little bit. But okay, as recently as 1996, we're going to bring up the Don't Ask, Don't Tell legislation, that kind of thing, or the Defense of Marriage Act, that sort of stuff.
Only 44% of Americans believed that same-sex relationships between consenting adults should be legal.
And that's exactly how it is today, isn't it?
And only 27% supported same-sex marriage.
And that's exactly how it is today, isn't it?
Today, those attitudes have shifted considerably.
Okay, so you're admitting that things have changed and that people can change. Okay, you're a rare one.
Now, 73% of Americans support same-sex marriage.
Oh my God. Well, how is that possible? I thought we were all stuck in outdated stereotypes forever and ever.
support same-sex relationships, and 63% support same-sex marriage.
All right.
What happened?
We all grew up a bit. Pretty much. Somehow Mike Wallace's, just eternal power over our minds just faded away, I suppose.
Why did Americans stop thinking that same-sex relationships were a threat?
Will and Grace. The TV show Will and Grace. Sure. Why not?
In large part, it was because gay and lesbian people came out to their family members and friends.
Oh. So, we all kind of collectively came to the much belated realization that these are just people like the rest of us, and they are our friends and family members, etc. And so let's just grow up and move on. Yeah, it happened. It's true. It became more comfortable to talk about these things. It became less taboo. And we all just kind of shrugged our shoulders and said, to each their own, and moved on with our lives. And the walls did not come crumbling down. So, yeah. And, I'm being a little, sarcastic here, obviously, but it's a good thing. It's probably a far long delayed thing. But it's also an example of how we have changed quite a bit in a relatively short amount of time. I mean, as recently as 1996, how quickly everything has kind of shifted. I wish more speakers would give credit to how adaptable and evolutionary we can be as a society. But more often than not, I'm hearing about the distant past as though it were just days ago, and that laws from back then are still relevant today somehow.
Showing those straight people that they already knew and loved gay people, that gay and lesbian people were part of their in-groups.
Uh-huh.
In-groups and out-groups are how people make sense of their place in the world.
Okay.
Everyone identifies as a member of a number of in-groups.
Well, in the abstract, I suppose I don't really think about it in those terms because I don't really worry that much about quote unquote identity or identity politics, as the case may be. But sure. Okay.
Well, they consider folks who are different to be members of out-groups.
Not in a conscious sense, not in a very Machiavellian mechanical sense, but okay. I mean, if I think of high school, let's think of the most, close at hand example of cliques and groups and looking at boundaries between socialization. In high school, I mean, I really wasn't a member of any kind of clique. I was kind of an outsider's outsider in a lot of ways. I didn't really fit in anywhere in particular, but there were the jocks and there were the goth kids. And back then there was the straight edge kids. You guys remember straight edge? Yeah, straight edge, man. I'm straight edge. I don't drink. I don't smoke. I don't eat meat. I have big X's sharpied on my forearms to show that I'm straight edge. Yeah, so you had cliques and groups and such. And so, yeah, you could see sort of the lines of demarcation and socialization in high school a lot more clearly than maybe you can in adult life. But, okay, yeah. But same time, I don't look at someone and say, they're on the out group because they're different from me. Mostly, they're a person I don't know, so I already want to stay away from them. Because I'm not very sociable. So I guess everybody's on the out group. I'm my own in group.
We tend to favor members of our in-groups and look to other in-group members for guidance on what to think and how to act.
And this is inherently bad, or this is inherently instinctual? Or is it both?
Well, we're less likely to listen to or to help members of out-groups.
I guess it depends on the context, but okay, you're setting the table. When's the main course? Or maybe the appetizer?
When gay and lesbian people began to come out in mass numbers in the 1990s and 2000s,
Yeah.
many friends and family members changed their consideration of same-sex relationships and marriage because those messengers were also their in-group members.
You just said that exact thing. Using different words, you just said that exact thing. You didn't need to make that point again. But thanks for assuming I didn't understand you the first time.
It didn't always go smoothly.
Uh-huh.
Sometimes coming out was painful
Yeah.
and dangerous.
Yeah.
But often it helped change how gay people were seen and understood.
Yeah.
What if you're not a member of an in-group and you still want to change someone's mind?
Well, you had better have a pretty good argument, I guess. So, for the sake of this presentation, let's pretend that the speaker is on the out group from me. And I'm my own in-group. So now it's her, I guess, responsibility in this presentation to convince me of something as a member of the out group. Well, let's see if she takes her own advice.
What if you want to be an ally for social justice?
Okay, how do we jump to social justice? Because you just said, what if you're trying to convince somebody outside of your own group of something, and now we're at social justice? Okay, that was a sudden insertion. Proceed.
In 2009, I flew to Evanston, Illinois to give a talk at Northwestern University.
Okay.
Brian, the grad student assigned to pick me up, had read about my work with community organizations and took the opportunity while I was in the car with him to pitch an idea.
Ooh, okay. Not an elevator pitch, but I guess a car ride pitch. Okay. And so you didn't know him. He was a stranger to you, and you were a stranger to him insofar as you'd never met before. So he's trying to convince you of something. Okay. Proceed.
Advocacy groups around the country were working to increase support for same-sex marriage.
Okay.
Maybe we could work with some of those groups.
Okay.
He asked if I'd be willing to help.
Something tells me he was pushing at an open door. So, I mean, you both were in the car together because you were of a like mind in a way. You wouldn't have been in the same car if you did not have an association of a kind already. So, how was he on the out group again? And were you resistant to this idea because at the time you thought differently or something?
It wasn't something I knew a lot about, but I was willing to learn.
Okay. And that's unique?
So we started reaching out to those advocacy organizations, asking if we could work with them and how we could help.
Okay. So you wanted to volunteer for a cause that you supported. I am marinating in stunness.
One group, Equality Illinois, wanted to know how to increase support for same-sex marriage among Black Americans.
Why would Black Americans need to be convinced of such a thing, might I ask?
Equality Louisiana wanted to know how to increase support among more religious Americans.
Okay. I'm curious for some more information on that first one, but I have a feeling I'm not going to get it. That might be a leaves out vital context at some point. We'll see.
What we found in that research is that in-group identity can boost the power of in-group messages, of persuasive messages, even when those messages are about an out-group.
Really? People you know and or are familiar with and or are share something in common are easier to listen to or take seriously than people who are complete strangers to you, even about something you're not familiar with? Oh my God.
When we told Black Americans that President Barack Obama had changed his mind about same-sex marriage and was now a supporter, they were 10 percentage points more likely to agree.
Uh, okay, well, now setting aside the subject matter in specificity, because it's something that I agree with personally, but is everyone such sheep that all they need is for the dear leader to say something and they'll go along with it? I'm not sure that's a comforting thought, honestly. Even if the thing going along with is an ultimate good, that seems a little creepy more than it is, I don't know, confidence inspiring. Maybe that's just me. But yeah, Barack Obama started out his campaign by being against same-sex marriage. Little known fact, but he changed his mind. Now, did he change his mind because he honestly changed his mind, or he saw the way the political winds were blowing and figured, I don't lose anything by going along to get along? We'll never know. We're not mind readers. But yeah. And so the country moved along too. And here we are. Are you taking credit for Barack Obama changing his mind or something? Or is that was that the result of that Illinois thing? I'm confused.
The effect was even stronger when the messenger was also Black.
Oh, okay. So skin color really matters then? You're not going to believe somebody if they're, interesting, interesting idea. Make something about race, sex, etc. for no reason? I don't know. I don't know if it's for no reason. Show me some statistics.
When we told religious Americans that a reverend believed that same-sex couples should be included in the sacrament of matrimony, they were 22% more likely to agree.
Oh my God. Wow. That's amazing.
It even worked for sports in-group identities.
Really?
When we told fans of the Green Bay Packers that Packers Hall of Famer Leroy Butler supported same-sex marriage, they were 15 percentage points more likely to say that they did too.
Non-Packers fans versus Packers fans. Okay. I mean, I'm not quite sure what the point of this is. It's like, oh, so we need to get our messages into places that people trust in order to convince them of things. All right, well, same-sex marriage, where we are now. Yes, people changed their minds and they thought about it, and they could sympathize either with people that they know or people that they trusted, and so on. Great. I completely agree. And
it wasn't that Leroy Butler or Barack Obama were gay. They were acting as straight allies, changing minds among other members of their in-groups.
Okay, sure. And
the messages were also particularly effective because they were counter-stereotypical. Folks did not expect a marriage supporting gay people from a religious leader or a professional football player.
I mean, as I don't know, as an examination of how the process of gay marriage or same-sex relationships becoming more acceptable in America over a relatively short period of time, sure. Okay. Who's your next target? What is your next issue? You don't need to convince me of this. I live in this country and I lived in this world all this time. So yeah, I get it. And you could have used a zillion other examples outside of gay marriage to convince me that someone I know and or empathize with and or associate myself with telling me something might at least provide a little bit more credibility or weight to me versus someone I don't know or am not associated with. Great. You could have told me that in about 2 minutes, and we're 5 minutes in, and you've said the same thing 7 times. So where are we going?
The dissonance of those messages increased their effectiveness. Brian and I used that logic in our research to help increase support for same-sex marriage and other gay rights.
And all credit to you for whatever work that you did to make it all possible. There's my golf clap. amidst everyone else who for decades were trying to get this stuff done, you guys in a car ride in 2009 decided to make some phone calls. Well, good for you. And
then in 2015, the United States Supreme Court ruled in Obergefell versus Hodges that same-sex marriages were protected by the Constitution.
Yep. And there's still some controversy over that because Ranting Monkey, I should say, and myself to a certain degree, feels as though the Supreme Court should have stayed out of it and allowed the states, which many of them had at that point, one by one of their own accord, legalize same-sex marriages to make it more an organic thing rather than something coming down from literally on high in the highest court in the land, and have the country's culture change of its own volition over time. I'm not upset with the result ultimately because I agreed with it. And there really, as far as I know, hasn't been any major backlash since the decision. So maybe such concerns were unwarranted. But yeah, okay, 2015 from 1996. So there you go. You know, less than 20 years and everything shifted quite a bit. Great. And
prejudice still remained.
And it always will. Anyone who tells you that we need to eliminate prejudice or eliminate racism or eliminate sexism, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, it is as conceivable as trying to eliminate murder. Never going to happen. It can be reduced in volume. It can be reduced in support. It can be reduced in legal justification, and it can be reduced in fashionableness, like smoking. But it's never going to go away.
There were still plenty of folks who did not approve of same-sex marriage and were opposed to same-sex relationships.
And there always will be. However, I predict, and I'm not too wrong on this, that the percentage of people who actively and vehemently oppose such things will winnow more and more as the years go on.
But the advocacy groups we were working with felt it was time to turn attention to another critical group.
Okay, we're moving on. You've used half of your presentation to tell us the same thing over and over and over again. All right, so you've established your strategy for changing minds. What is the new target?
Transgender people.
Okay.
In contrast to the improving attitudes towards gay and lesbian people in the last few decades, prejudice and hostility towards transgender people persists.
It does, and it will. And the percentages that take their time to outwardly express such things will diminish because we're all growing up a little bit, incrementally, day by day. Everyone's business is their own, etc. It's not going to happen overnight, but given the circumstances of today, it's happening more quickly, if you haven't noticed, almost to an unhealthy degree in some instances, but that's another conversation.
They are often the victims of violence and even murder.
So are white men. Are you going to advocate for them? Are you going to advocate for that demographic? I'm just asking.
From 2013 to 2018, at least 128 transgender people were murdered.
Were they murdered because they were transgender? That is the relevant question there. If you're going to start using this as some sort of moral cudgel on people, were they murdered because they were transgender? Was the motivation in their deaths because they were transgender?
Most of whom were women of color.
What does that have to do with anything? Okay, it took a while, but make something about race, sex, etc. for no reason. If you're talking about transgender, their gender specifically and their race is functionally irrelevant, as it should be in most things. Not that transgender should be relevant in assessing someone, but anyway. So free space is circled. Make something about race, sex, etc. for no reason is circled. I'm going to circle leaves out vital context, because that was fitting before. Let's go over the rest of the card real quick. Plays victim. Well, she hasn't yet, no. Takes credit for something done by others. In their demographic, well, she didn't specifically take credit for the grand sea change in attitudes towards gay and lesbian people, but she sure seemed to elevate her own role in it a little bit, so I'm going to circle that one. White privilege, supremacy, she hasn't brought that up. Childhood or family anecdote. Not a childhood family anecdote. She brought up a professional anecdote, but that doesn't count as far as I'm concerned. Microaggression, hasn't brought it up. Wage gap, no. Patriarchy, no. Attempt to coin new buzzword, buzz phrase, no. Word salad, not yet. I mean, everything she said has made sense for its context. Systemic institutional, no. Toxic, no. Anecdote that probably never happened, not really. She hasn't brought up any anecdotes except her car ride with the guy, and I can believe that happened. Speaker should not be in current occupation or position. Well, she's a professor of political science. I guess she's talking to a certain extent about political science, social science. I don't know if she's invalidated her role yet. Marginalization, no. School to prison pipeline, no. Rape culture, no. Feminism, no. Benevolent condescension, not quite yet. Equity, no. A list, no. Cultural appropriation, no. Gratuitous pausing for effect, not that I've noticed. Okay, so far I've circled takes credit, free space, leaves out vital context, and makes something about race for no reason. Moving on.
The deep levels of fear and disgust that people have towards transgender people means that a different approach is necessary.
Why? Why is a different approach necessary? I mean, let's not pretend that your run-of-the-mill gay person or lesbian person was somehow not as much vilified and demonized back in the 90s, the 80s, the 70s, or if you want to go all the way back to the 60s and your Mike Wallace thing. I mean, if you want a comparison, let's say, at least from our speaker's implication here, thoughts towards transgender people are as bad in their extreme, let's say, as the 1960s Mike Wallace presentation, right? So why would you need a different strategy? Why can't you employ what changed a good swath of the American populace as far as like their mentality on gay and lesbian people in the 90s to the 2000s? Why do you need a different strategy for this? Because some number of transgender people were murdered for reasons you won't clarify. That means that something else. I mean, were any gay people murdered between 1996 and 2015? Was some other strategy required then, or is the one that you just, raised up on a pedestal not enough? I'm not sure I understand.
What Brian and I have found in our more recent research is that the key is to appeal to folks' existing values and to reassure folks who are uncomfortable that they are good people.
Reassure them that they're good people even if they hate transgender people because they're transgender? And exactly what is the goal? I mean, just to have people see transgender people as people too? It's a bit amorphous. Or are you aiming for something more tangible, like legislation, sort of like the, legalizing gay marriage? Because just convincing people that transgender people are people, I mean, all credit to you for doing so. If you have to find somebody who vehemently hates such people and needs to be convinced otherwise, I guess. But, at least gay marriage had a goal. There was a legalizing gay marriage, a very specific thing you were going for. What are you going for here? Here's four key takeaways from that research. Oh, a list. Okay. 4 key takeaways from that research. The research that you did to find people who hated transgender people, but you need to reassure them that they're good people so that you could get on the in-group and then work your way into convincing them of something. I mean, okay, basic negotiation tactics.
First, start the conversation.
Wow. That's your opener? In order to convince somebody of something they may not agree with, you need to start the conversation? Wow. Okay.
Changing minds sooner rather than later means making it a social priority and making it the topic of frequent conversation.
Okay. And then?
It's okay to not know the perfect thing to say. The more important thing is to show how important it is by talking about it.
I guess, unless you come across as a zealot and unless you come across someone who just doesn't care to listen. I mean, there comes a point at which you have to sort of give up and say, this person is not going to change their mind. Let's move on. You know, I mean, setting the tone as an example for others versus trying to change someone who's dyed in the wool and doesn't have a reason to change otherwise. I mean, maybe there can be some benefit there, but most often it's probably a waste of your energy. Maybe I'm just being cynical.
When your mom says something at the dinner table about how scared she was when a man dressed as a woman came into the ladies' restroom at the office, don't just look down at your plate.
Don't just look down at my plate. I can't empathize with my mother. And okay, okay.
Start a conversation right there at the dinner table.
At the dinner table about restroom etiquette or gender identity? At the dinner table? Really? Okay.
Ask her why she felt that way. And
why do you think she felt that way? There was a man in the women's restroom. Someone who was observably male walking into the women's restroom. Why? You want to talk about in-groups and out-groups? And the comfort zone of both? You just... Oh, never mind.
And why she's bringing it up.
Because it was on her mind? Should she not bring it up? Would you have an opportunity to change a mind if she didn't? Tell her she's wrong for being concerned. Tell her her emotions are incorrect. Tell her her instincts or her concerns are evil and that she is evil. Don't look down at your plate. Tell her how wrong she is. Tell your mother how flawed she is. Because you know better. That's what you do at the dinner table.
And then share your perspective.
Okay. And what is my perspective?
Don't berate people.
No, don't berate people. Don't berate people. Just interrogate them as though their feelings or their concerns or their confusions are somehow illegitimate. That's we're not berating people. We're just questioning the credibility of their own reactions.
Don't say that they're stupid or that they're a bad person.
No. Don't say it. Just imply it, with your questioning and your rejoinder. It's fine.
That'll just make them dig in their heels.
Yeah, which they're totally not going to do otherwise. Anyway.
But don't leave that intolerance hanging there.
Why not? Why not? I mean, did the mother do something to this person, or did she just feel uncomfortable? Why start a fight if you don't need to? The world is going to move on without your mother. I hate to tell you this. I mean, my grandmother, what a piece of work she is. There's a lot to admire about my grandmother. You know, she comes from very, very humble beginnings. We're talking survived the Dust Bowl and the Great Depression beginnings. Okay. We're talking about a long-time, hardworking woman who raised children under difficult circumstances, you know, married to a guy who was honestly a saint. He was a pilot in World War II, worked for NASA. They were salt of the earth people. If there's a picture in the dictionary for the phrase salt of the earth, my grandmother and my grandfather would be pictured there. However, my grandmother is a dyed-in-the-wool product of her time. Always has been, and until she dies, always will be. You talk to her now, and she says things, and she makes observations and comments that sound so stereotypically racist, sexist, homophobic, etc., that it's literally laughable. I could give you some specific examples, but I'll refrain because I don't know what YouTube is going to do about it if I do say those things. Anyway, imagine the most stereotypical old person ideas and opinions on certain demographics in this world, and my grandmother has voiced those opinions in one way, shape, or form to my face in the modern day. And you know what I do? I just kind of nod and smile. You know, it's like, yeah, and then change the subject. You know why? Because she's an old woman, and her way of thinking is antiquated. It is out of date. It is irrelevant. She has no power over anyone for anything anymore. And fighting with her, trying to change her mind at the age of whatever she is, like 97 or something now, whatever. It's a waste of time. It's not going to change anything. And short of her going out and staging rallies or protests or something, or threatening people's safety or whatever because of her ideas, short of that, why bother wasting your energy? Change the laws, change the policies, act as a role model for others. But if you come across somebody, especially in your own family, who's set in their ways and thinking about something or feeling whatever, really, really, really assess. Is it worth your energy or your time to try to change that mind rather than just be the change you want to see and move through the world that way so that you can be the mother or the father or the big brother or big sister that acts in a way that you hope other people act rather than trying to become militant and go after people who don't agree with you? I mean, she hasn't talked about militancy yet. I understand. But she's talking about argumentation against a brick wall. And so maybe if she changes her mother's mind, then what? Then what? Is mom practice for something? I don't know.
Start the conversation.
Yeah.
Second, share your own journey story or the journey story of others to provide a model about how one can become more supportive of members of outgroups.
Or just be the change you want to see. Why do you need to be an evangelist? Why can't you just act in accordance to your own principles and values rather than having to confront people? Why do you need to seek out people who disagree with you? Why not just be the change you want to see? Don't assess people on the basis of their skin color. Don't judge people on the basis of their gender identity. Don't judge people on the basis of their sexual orientation. Take people on their own personal merits, one at a time, and do so open and proud. Be the change you want to see. And if you want to advocate for changes in legislation or policy or law, go ahead. That's fine. Why do you need to be an evangelist towards people who already disagree with it or you assume disagree with it? I don't know.
When we told folks the story of Kimberly Shapley, a religious mom who changed her mind about transgender people when her daughter came out as transgender.
Her daughter came out as transgender. I'm going to go back a second to look at that picture. How old do you think that girl is? Yeah, at least in that picture, like maybe 11, 12, maybe. Maybe I'm being generous. I don't know. Size of the hands. Her daughter came out as transgender. Before that child has hit puberty, they already have an awareness of their gender identity. Maybe that's a subject for another conversation, but I just wanted to double check that I was seeing the picture I was seeing there.
Daughter came out as transgender. They became 9% more likely to say that they felt comfortable around transgender people, and 18% less likely to say they thought transgender people were mentally ill.
Imagine that. Once again, someone within your own personal family or care space, whether it's a friend, family member, direct child, etc. Imagine that. Someone shows themselves to be part of a demographic that you might not otherwise understand. And suddenly you have empathy. Wow. And only 9%? Really? Only 9%? That seems awfully low. But okay, yeah. You've already proven this point. How is this a different strategy from what you were talking about before? Going back to what she's already said, how is what you're talking about some drastic change from the procedure of conversation that you were supposedly having between 2009 and 2015 to convince people that same-sex marriage should be okay? What's different here? What is so radically altered from your previous strategy? I don't understand.
Knowing that others have changed their minds makes it easier for folks to allow themselves to do the same.
Yes, social pressure does change people into conforming to get along, even if they're not comfortable with it necessarily. And over time, that becomes the new normal, and we all get along with our lives. Yes. What's different here?
Third, emphasize the good in people and how good they'll feel when they act in a way that's consistent with their core values.
Sure. I mean, as far as regular, I don't know, negotiation, diplomacy, debate, you want to appeal to someone's values and show how your side aligns with them naturally. I mean, whether your argument's good or not, you're trying to get on the side of the person who opposes your viewpoint. Whether you're talking about transgender people or what type of cheese to buy at the store, right? Okay. This is all very boilerplate. Are we going to get to something revelatory?
There's a powerful emotion called moral elevation. It's that warm, fuzzy feeling you get when you watch viral videos of firefighters rescuing ducklings stuck in a sewer, or a man jumping onto the subway tracks to rescue a stranger who's fallen off the platform.
You mean common human compassion? Feeling empathy and or synergy with someone who is performing an act of self-sacrifice? Yeah, okay. Sure. What has that got to do with anything?
When we showed folks a short viral video that showed them how good people can be to one another, it made them want to model that behavior.
Uh-huh.
Their levels of transphobia decreased, and they were 17% more likely to sign a petition saying transgender people should be allowed to use the public restroom that corresponds with their gender identity.
Wait, What did she say she used to convince people of this? Maybe I missed something here. Sorry, I'm going to go back a little bit.
Feeling you get when you watch viral videos of firefighters rescuing ducklings stuck in a sewer.
Okay, firefighters rescuing ducklings in a sewer.
Or a man jumping onto the subway tracks to rescue a stranger who's fallen off the platform.
Okay. What does that have to do with transgender people?
When we showed folks a short viral video that showed them how good people can be to one another, it made them want to model that behavior. Their levels of transphobia decreased, and they were 17% more likely to sign a petition saying transgender people should be allowed to use the public restroom that corresponds with their gender identity.
So you used videos of, basic sort of human heroism and or self-sacrifice, and then asked them about transgender rights in bathrooms. Okay. Sounds a little manipulative, but okay.
When you feel good about yourself, it's easier to be more open to accepting others.
Yeah. So you're using psychological manipulation to get people to agree with your position? I guess. Okay.
And finally, you can increase the likelihood of persuasion by bringing in backup, celebrities and attitude leaders who agree with you.
Yes. If your argument isn't enough, take the argument of this person who is well known, because celebrity equals credibility.
When we told folks that Admiral Mike Mullen, former chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, supported transgender people like Staff Sergeant Logan Ireland serving openly in the US military, they were more likely to agree.
Okay. Thank you, Jedi Ghost Bear. Propaganda techniques work. The end. Well, I mean, propaganda techniques, basic advertising and marketing. Okay, let me clarify something here. Fundamentally speaking, I'm not disagreeing with her strategy for trying to change people's minds or market an idea or convince people of something. That's fine. I mean, it's legal, it's common, it's historically successful, etc. So if that's what she's trying to do, okay. But there's nothing new here. I mean, she talked about how in the realm of convincing people of transgender rights, we had to do a dramatically or drastically different strategy from what we did to convince people of same-sex marriage. Like, okay. And she brought up the example of 120 some odd transgender people have died in this period of time by murder. Like, okay, so what's the strategy that's different now on the basis of this many murders? Because as we know, no gay people were ever murdered between 1996 and 2015. So obviously it's more of a vital and an emergency situation for transgender people because of the murders. But nothing that she's listed off has been anything that I wouldn't expect from anybody trying to sell a new car. I mean, why do companies get celebrities to pitch their products? It's not a new strategy. You see a familiar face. You see someone you sort of ephemerally associate with or empathize with, or someone that you like because of the characters they play in TV and movies or something. And then you're more likely to pay attention to what they're saying. And this increases the possibility that you're going to go along with what they're saying. Barack Obama says, I've changed my mind on same-sex marriage. A lot of people go, you know what? He's not wrong. And they change their minds too. It's not necessarily insidious. It's not necessarily bad. It's just not new. So what's new here? I guess is my question. Thank you. This is Kyle. So basically, the modern leftist strategy. It's not a leftist strategy. Convincing people of something they might disagree with of their own accord, it's salesmanship. I mean, the specifics of the topic that you're going after might have to change specifically for that topic, but basic salesmanship. How do you convince someone to buy something that they don't know they need? Right? You know, how does somebody come up to you on the street and convince you to buy something or invest in something that you'd never heard about prior to them coming up to you? It's salesmanship. It's not inherently evil. It's not inherently bad. It's just salesmanship. And nothing that she's said here so far is any different than anything I would assume a regular run-of-the-mill activist organization would not do to convince people to get on their side, convince people to donate to their cause, and so on. And yet she said that they had to do something radically different in the realm of transgender people versus same-sex marriage because of murder. So I'm still waiting for this, I don't know, unique strategy or something, because nothing, celebrities, I mean, using a Joint Chiefs of Staff member to convince you that transgender people in the military aren't an inherent disadvantage. So you went to an expert for their opinion on something that they have direct knowledge of to give their opinion on something, and it aligns with your beliefs or your intentions. Because by dint of their expertise, their word carries more weight than yours does. Oh my God. We've never seen that before, have we, guys? 9 out of 10 doctors recommend. I mean, tell me something I don't know, I guess is my flat statement. Tell me something I do not know.
When we paired that message with an appeal to their core value of equality, they were 29% more likely to sign a petition in support of transgender troops.
Okay, equality, equity. I don't know. I'll take arguments from you guys whether or not her saying equality rates on the same level as equity, because equity these days implies something much different than equality. But just know that I reacted to that.
You have this superpower.
I do?
When you start conversations, you can change people's perspective, change public opinion, and change public policy.
Wow. Well, I mean, I don't know. I would be surprised and or gratified, depending on the situation, if I changed somebody's opinion on something simply by something I said. But that's not my intention doing these streams. That's not my intention doing the videos on my channel. And I've said this God knows how many times before. My only hope is not to get people to agree with me. I mean, my opinions are mine. If you agree with them, fine. If you don't, fine. My only real hope for anything that I say or do on this channel is to encourage people to think critically, to listen to what people are saying and think about what they're saying. Compare what they said in the past to what they're saying now. Does it make sense? Even if you don't agree with it, does it at least make sense in the context in which it was given? Think critically. I'm not trying to persuade anybody to my side. I'll say what I think. But I'm not trying to change minds to agree with me. I'm just trying to encourage people to think for themselves and not just go along because somebody important said so. So if an expert, a doctor, a lawyer, an educator, a business person, a politician comes out on a stage and says something, that you don't listen to their credentials, you listen to their ideas. That's what I'm hoping for, if nothing else.
It sounds like an easy way to get the side eye, but it works. We know it works based on a decade of public opinion and political communication research.
Wow. Getting celebrities to say things you want to have promoted in the positive light. Getting legislation moved along to change things into the ways that you want things to be. Having peaceful, non-aggressive conversations with people to try to change opinions. Wow. Gosh, these are so innovative. I can't believe that I had never thought of such things before or witnessed such in my lifetime. You are a true trailblazer, Doctor.
It doesn't mean folks have to be completely comfortable. You can still feel uncomfortable about people who are different and want them all to be treated equally.
Yeah, I guess.
That's true whether you're pushing back against transphobia or homophobia, against xenophobia or Islamophobia, against sexism or racism, or against any of the other isms or phobias that plague modern society.
Yeah, I guess you're right. That's true. That plague modern society. That plague not modern society. That will plague future society. These things are not going away. They only diminish in acceptance. That's the most you can hope for. They diminish in acceptance of truth. That's it. You know, I can hope for a utopia. I can hope for a perfect world. I know there is no such thing, and one person's utopia is another person's hell. Those things will always plague society, no matter what society you're talking about. All we can do is diminish their relevance, diminish their fashionability. And we have. It takes time. It's not an overnight process. I can only hope that at some point we get past all of this nonsense where we're assessing people on the basis of what they are rather than who they are. But I'm not given much hope lately, especially.
It might not work right away.
No shit.
Think of it like launching a boat across a body of water, sailing from prejudice to inclusion.
Okay.
Every time you have a conversation, you're giving that boat a little nudge toward the other shore.
Uh-huh.
And it might not work on everyone.
Yeah, like your mother at the dinner table.
Some folks are so committed to their opinions that you can't get them to see things a different way.
Yeah, imagine that. I wonder if some of your colleagues who have opinions about people on the basis of their skin color in a benevolent lens are susceptible at all to having their opinions changed.
But sometimes you can get them to change their perspective.
Uh-huh.
It can't hurt to try.
Uh-huh.
The only way that change is impossible is if we don't try. Being an ally for social justice means having those difficult conversations with members of your in-groups and helping them to change their perspective and want to treat folks who are different with equality and justice.
Why are they part of your in-group? I mean, seriously, if you're around a bunch of people who think entirely differently than you do on social justice issues, why are they a part of your in-group? Why are you a part of their in-group? How do you gel with people who fundamentally think differently than you do? I mean, outside of a familial connection, which you can't avoid, why are they a part of your in-group? Why are you a part of theirs? I'm not saying that such efforts are thus, irrelevant or unnecessary, depending on the circumstances. I'm just curious, like what brought you together in the first place that you have common ground enough to say that you're an in-group?
This is America.
Yes, it is.
Let's make it a better America for everyone.
And we are procedurally doing so, bit by bit, day by day. We're trying. We've been trying since we started in order to form a more perfect union, etc. 1996 to 2015. Less than 20 years, we went from Don't Ask, Don't Tell, Defense of Marriage Act to legalize same-sex marriage. 20 years. I mean, that's not to say that, homophobia or fear of same-sex marriage didn't exist prior to 1996. But if we're trying to talk about the date she brought up, in a relatively short amount of time, our country experienced a sea change of opinion. And that was before the Supreme Court made their ruling. That was state by state, jurisdiction by jurisdiction, these things changed. Just like the legalization of pot, minds can change in this country towards a more equitable, reasonable end. We're not without hope in America. We're not without the ability to evolve or change or move past unnecessary prejudices. But, I mean, aside from the specificity of her target demographics in this, I'm not even sure anything that she said here was new. I mean, trying to convince someone of your opinion. This is almost like boilerplate debate club stuff. So, I don't know, guys. Let's go over the bingo card one more time here. Make sure I didn't miss anything of my own perspective. Plays victim. She never brought herself up all that much, so I can't say that. White supremacy privilege, no. Childhood or family anecdote. I mean, she brought up an abstract anecdote of talking to a mother, but she never talked about herself, so I can't say that works. Microaggression, no. Wage gap, no. Patriarchy, no. Attempt to coin new buzzword, buzz phrase. Nothing that she said falls outside of established theories or publications that I can tell. So now, word salad, I'm open to arguments for that one. I didn't hear anything that was completely incoherent. Systemic institutional, I don't think she ever uses the phrase. Toxic, no. Anecdote that probably never happened. She never, aside from meeting that guy in the car, she never brought up any anecdotes. Everything was sort of like abstracts or hypotheticals. Speaker should not be in current occupation or position. She never brought up political science, which is apparently her profession. So I can't judge whether or not her proficiency in political science is questionable or not. So I'm hesitant to circle that one. Marginalization, never said the word. School to prison pipeline, no. Rape culture, no. Feminism, no. Benevolent condescension. I mean, I might be able to stretch some of the things that she said into that realm. I'm going to leave it. You guys tell me. Equity, again, she said equality. I mean, but the specific word is equity, and that implies something different than equality. So, I mean, equity implies an outcome of something, where equality implies an opportunity of something. So I'm hesitant to circle equity. Cultural appropriation, no. Gratuitous pausing for effect, not that I noticed. Okay, so what I have circled is takes credit for something done by others, free space, leaves out vital context, makes something about race for no reason, and a list. That's what I have circled. So guys, I will take your comments, questions, observations now. ERA us now. Scribelight, her in-group is white people. It's that simple. That was implied, if not directly stated, during the course of the conversation. But yeah, I mean, she basically implied that anybody who is quote unquote different than you, and she named off the specific attributes that make someone different, not just simply being a stranger, someone you don't recognize, but very specific, observable or experiential attributes to someone different than you. Anyway, Renovescio, everyone who agrees with you, if you disagree, you get canceled. These days, Not too far off the mark. Dark Alal. So in other words, she wants to make America great again. Yeah, I mean, this is America. We can do it. Let's see. Jim, let's do that by blowing up Mount Rushmore. She's an incredibly dangerous person. Maybe I'm missing some context there. That one, sort of Satania. It's new to SJWs and her types. Believe me, Scribelight. Maybe. I mean, and honestly, aside from the demographics she talked about, which are often classified within the realm of social justice, she never really talked about social justice. She just, if you remove gay marriage and you remove transgender people and you just look at the strategy for convincing people to rethink their position on something, as far as I can tell, nothing that she put up there is new. Nothing that she put up there is innovative. It's just, again, boilerplate debate club type strategy. So what was new here? What was revolutionary? What was radically different in the strategy for convincing people about transgender people versus same-sex marriage? If she said it, I missed it. Let's see. Sargim, the mother that talked about being scared never happened. She talked about feminism at the end. Well, the mother that talked about being scared, she didn't bring up that as something that happened to her. She brought that up as a hypothetical. So anything can be a hypothetical. I can't call that something that never happened because I'm sure it has happened. But she didn't bring up something that was direct to her. So I can't circle that one as an anecdote. That was just an example or a scenario. Let's see. Scribe, the title was social justice. Well, I know the title was social justice, but again, removing the demographics she was speaking about, the core of her presentation had to do with trying to convince the audience that there is a way to convince people to get along with an opinion you have. And in that sense, she didn't present anything new or revolutionary. You could have been talking about convincing someone to eat a different ice cream. Well, we need a celebrity to endorse this thing. You need someone in your in-group to give you a recommendation, et cetera, et cetera. You know, what's the difference? Let's see. That one sort of standing, and you remove transgender people, unquote. Don't take this out of context. Well, I mean, I'm looking for the core message of the presentation, right? Because she was talking about argumentation. She was talking about convincing somebody to go along with an idea they had not considered. So in that sense, it really doesn't matter what the subject matter is. It matters what the strategy is for attaining that goal. So the talk wasn't inherently about transgender people. It wasn't inherently about same-sex marriage. Those were just the two examples that she was talking about from her own personal experience. The strategy for coming across to someone who might oppose those ideas is the same, regardless. So, Sargim, I thought she was talking about her transgender daughter, Scribelight. She brought up the example of one lady and her transgender daughter and how that was exemplative of someone whose opinion could change on transgender people once they had someone in their own family. But I don't think that she was referencing the example of the mother at the dinner table bathroom thing as that was an example from that mother and daughter. I didn't get that connection. If I missed that, by all means, but I don't think that's... I think she brought up the dinner table conversation as a hypothetical. I don't think she was saying that's a conversation that took place between that mother and their daughter. So... let's see. Check your logic. Ah, shit, I'm late. Well, don't worry. It'll be here forever, unless YouTube decides otherwise. Let's see. Scrappy, this world is not going to be kumbaya. She needs to take this crap to the Middle East. Okay, I'm not going to say that either because, I mean, the example she brought up is a valid one. From 1996 to 2015, you look at the sea change in opinion about same-sex marriage or gay and lesbian people in general, and the opinions on that changed quite a bit, and for the better, in my opinion. So it's not completely useless. I'm just not sure how this is any different from what you see in Mad Men, You ever watch Mad Men and listen to Don Draper's sort of, musings on how you advertise to people, how you sell them on an idea? You could take quotations from that show and plug them into this presentation, and you probably wouldn't have that much of a difference. Trying to convince someone that they need a thing or they need to accept an idea that they hadn't considered prior to you interacting with them. It's salesmanship. It's debate. That's all it is. I didn't see anything new here. I didn't see anything that was special for transgender people versus anything else. Let's see. Asian Hippie says, hit the like button, pheasants. If there are birds currently watching this, that'd be crazy. Let's see, Scrappy. Still, she's preaching to very tolerant people when there are people otherwhere who should be less murderous. Not sure I caught that one exactly. I'll blame autocorrect for that one. Yeah, I have a feeling that she was pushing at an open door there. She wasn't talking to anyone who needed to be convinced. I can presume that the TEDx audience had no idea how to market an idea or how to debate a point. Maybe. But yeah. Anyway, I don't see many people arguing against or for any selections I've had on the bingo card, so I'm going to take a moment here and display that for everyone's edification. If you have any other comments or questions or observations you'd like to put out there, by all means, put them in the chat now. It'll take me a second to get this squared away. I don't know. To be an ally to someone is to argue in favor of their position. How amazing an idea that is, I guess. I mean, I guess this is my ultimate question. What did any of what she had to say have to do explicitly with social justice? Again, aside from the demographics that she was advocating for, which is fine, what did anything that she had to say about the strategy for doing so, why was any of that unique to social justice? That's the part I guess I don't get. So anyway, here is my bingo card. We didn't reach a bingo, only a couple of squares off. Last couple minutes here for any other comments or observations, and then we'll wrap this up. Let's see. Renovatio. Opinions of their movement and people are getting worse as a result of their own movement's actions, but of course they will never accept their own responsibility. They are unquestionable in their eyes. She didn't bring up any movements or any protests or anything in there. She brought up argumentation and pitching an idea and trying to change people's minds. If this were a conversation about activism or protests or something else, or if she was advocating for some other kind of action beyond simple conversation, maybe we'd have something to talk about there. But she only talked about strategy, and the strategy doesn't impress me. I'm not saying it's ineffective. I'm just saying it's nothing new. Let's see. Faithless, quilting grandma. Hey, my grandmother made more than a few quilts in her day. In fact, I still have a couple of the quilts that she made. They are comfy, comfy comforters. I don't begrudge her quilting abilities. I also don't waste my time trying to convince her that her opinions on certain demographics are outdated because she's old and senile, and there's no point to it. Faithless says, I meant guilting, LOL. Oh, well, you know what? Either way it works. Quilting, guilting. Yeah, guilting grandma is a waste of time. Let's see. And Sar Jim says, this talk was in September of last year. I can bet she's talking about protests now. Could be. I mean, I occasionally find TEDx speakers who have had more than one talk over the course of time. So who knows? Maybe she'll do another one soon on a completely different subject. I always like revisiting characters and speakers that I've done videos on in the past to see what they're doing now or what they're talking about. Like Rachel Cargill, TEDx, I did a couple of TEDx's back, how she's putting her ideas out there. It's always interesting to find familiar faces. We live in such a small world when you focus on things like this. But, and nods. I think a lot of people don't understand she's trying to talk them into doing work for her. Well, sure. And again, I mean, you might think of that as insidious, but it's just common practice. When you're trying to get people to come along to your side of the argument, when you're trying to encourage people to go forth and perpetuate your opinion on things, whether it's you endorsing a political candidate or a social movement or whatever else, there's nothing inherently wrong with that. You know, marketing, salesmanship, buy this thing, tell your friends. When I say like, subscribe, and share, that is the most basic form of trying to gather an audience, right? I mean, I'm not doing anything insidious by doing that. I'm just saying, hey, if you like my stuff, tell other people. If you agree with me, move along and maybe perform as I do to try to help out, etc. There's nothing inherently wrong with that. Now, what you're trying to get people to do or promote or to endorse, that's always up for debate. But the mechanisms itself aren't revolutionary. They're not inherently bad. They're not inherently good. They just are. It's just how people work. Was anything that she was promoting here inherently bad? Not really. I mean, there's been plenty of debate over the bathroom issue for transgender people. I'm not going to get into that here because it's a long debate and conversation. But yeah, I mean, that might be a contentious point for some people versus others. But outside of that, I don't know. If that was her only thing, if she was only trying to drive towards legislation to make transgender identity something that allows you to go to one bathroom versus another, okay. If that was her ultimate goal, all right. I mean, again, the considerations for it can go either way depending on who you're talking to, but all right. So, I mean, this talk wasn't so much, I guess, offensive or anything, or brain aneurysm instigating, that it was sort of meh, shrug my shoulders. This promoted what that was new. This pushed forward some idea that was interesting. Not to me, but I'm more than happy to hear opinions to the contrary. So guys, thank you so much for coming out with me today and watching this. Wasn't sure where we're going to go, but we got there eventually. I may do another TEDx tomorrow about the second runner-up, or the runner-up, I should say, today's poll, dealing with time. Now, in what context is time for the talk that we'll be looking at? You'll just have to wait and see. Because even from the title alone, I can tell it's going to be a doozy. But that will be probably tomorrow, so keep an eye on my Twitter. Link is in the description. At least I think my link is in the description. It's been a while since I looked at that. Regardless, guys, thank you so much for your attendance, your participation, and thank you so much for your generosity. It'll all go towards horrible things I'll put in my body, like pepper jacks, to help insulate the madness that I expose myself to on a semi-regular basis through TEDx Talks. Everyone, I hope you're having a good Sunday. Hope you have a good rest of your weekend. Hope you are all safe and well. If you're not well, please get well soon. If you have anything else that I didn't cover here or that I didn't get to in the chat, please leave them in the comments, and I'll look at that soon. And otherwise, everyone, I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.